We're live?
We are live.
Okay. So it says we need to take turns talking about the points. We've identified both the overt references and the more subtle ones. So what we noticed from the reading and also from the video we watched, the simulation. Who would like to talk first? What are some things that you noticed
from the video is that he was really good to like reaffirm things. Like he would say, "Okay, I feel like you feel this way. Is that true?" You know what I mean? Like he's restating over again after what someone would say. We're talking about the therapy session, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I really liked that he did that too, just because it really helps with, like, he kind of helps clarify for everyone, just because, like, I know for me, like, if I were in that situation, I'd have a hard time explaining myself. And so for him, he was able to break down, oh, so you said this, so this is how you feel, stuff like that. And then they were like, oh, yeah, I guess, kind of thing. Like, they were able to realize that that was what was happening. And then, go for it.
Almost be like a third person in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was really impressed too how he did that and how he helped them understand what the real problems were, because it seemed like they were so scattered, and then he really helped them clear it up. And I like how he kept on asking, like, if I'm not saying this right, please correct me. And so he made sure that he was understanding exactly what they were saying and that they were understanding him as well.
Right, I like that too. The way he validated with the reflective listening was really effective in that way. I think it helped them to figure out how they would define the problem as well.
Yeah. Any other things that you noticed that you liked or disliked?
I think he was able to help the people realize things they didn't even know that they felt. You know, he was like at one point he said to them, "So you feel like you're not loved because your mom does this?" Like, yeah, I guess that's true. You know, kind of make them notice more of their things, and then see, well, even though you feel this way, this is how your mom is really feeling. You can come together.
You know, I really appreciate like how he broke down the way that they were communicating with each other. Like he was saying, oh, so when they're yelling at you, even though they are doing it out of concern and love for you, you feel like they don't love you. When he was talking to Jimmy, and then whenever he would leave the house, that he was trying to get away because he felt he didn't feel loved, but they just thought that he was being rebellious.
Right.
So like it was just kind of like he was able to break down and show like everyone had like either good contentions or they were all really concerned about how they felt, how the other people were thinking about them and things like that. And so he helped clear up how everyone's actions were interpreted differently, even though the intentions were different.
Right. Did a lot of clarifying.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really like that as well. Did you notice from the chapter we read, the resilience, strengthening family resilience, practice principles and guidelines. Do you notice, did he do a lot of what that talked about in the chapter, do you think, or was it not similar at all?
One thing that I noticed from that he did during the session and that was in the reading was that he pointed out what was normal and stuff. He made it normative for them. Like one thing he was talking about how Jimmy, he had just graduated high school. He's 18. He's an adult. He wanted to go out and do things whatever he wanted, which is he was saying like that's normal for an 18-year-old to want that kind of autonomy. But for his parents, he's still a child. He still lives in their home. He still needs to abide by rules. And so, but he was like basically just making it more like, hey, this is normal for it to be like that. That was one thing that I noticed that he did.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's an
I
effective
also,
method anyway, too, because you're putting the executives at the top of the family and giving the parents more support and more power to assert not over their children, but to interact with them in a respectful manner and cope with the problem at hand.
yeah, I like that too. I liked how he moved the parents together, and then he ended up moving the son over to sit next to him, kind of almost like they didn't even notice what was happening, but they're, bringing them all together and kind of where they needed to be for the discussion that they were having. I liked how he did that.
Yeah, because then I felt like they weren't talking across the room. They could sit together. They could have more eye contact with one another, and I think that helped.
hmm Any other points that you identified from the simulation or the reading? Okay, I think we can move on. The next question says, note the trends of your findings as a group. Did everyone identify the same points, or were there points that not everyone caught? So, seems like one of the main things we caught were normalizing and helping them figure out what their problems were. And also, I think it seems like we touched on communicating, helping them to communicate a little bit. Was there anything else that...
I think sympathizing, because when they came in, they were all kind of angry with one another. They had resentment. And then once they all, he helped clarify, they started to sympathize. Okay, my mom really does love me. She's concerned about me. She's worried that one of these days I'm not going to come home, He could relate to her on that, and the husband could be like, okay, this is a big deal for you. Even though I don't feel like it's a big deal, it is to you, and I need to be concerned about that. So they just got to appreciate and sympathize more, I felt like.
Yeah, I agree. It's like when they realized what their real feelings were behind their behavior, then they were like, oh, it seems like most of them were surprised. Like Jimmy was surprised that his sister was caring about him and that his mom and dad actually cared about him, because he thought that they didn't like him and were pushing him away, when really they were just maybe overreacting or responding in a manner that he misinterpreted, and then they would misinterpret him. And so I thought that was really interesting too, how once they understood how the other felt, it changed things. It helped them be more open, I think.
Mm-hmm.
No, I noticed that too, that it eliminated a lot of misconceptions.
Yeah.
Because he probably felt like his sister was just on him and just wanted to get him in trouble, but then it was a more positive outlook, in the sense that she was looking out for him and that she was concerned about him and that she loved him, instead of being an awkward, annoying sibling or whatever he may have felt or thought.
Mm-hmm.
I think he also simplified it. I mean, there's all these elements to him, but the bottom line was they were all just concerned for one another. They wanted a good relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that too. I like how he kept on kind of like saying, so what you're saying is you actually care about him, or you care about her. And when they didn't see that, oh yeah, that is what I mean. That is what I'm feeling. One other thing I noticed that I really liked was how he didn't solve the problem for them, or even try to, and he kept saying that like, I can't solve this for you. I can't make Jimmy call home. I can't make him come home on time. That's what you know your family best. And he kept on giving them support and complimenting them on what they were doing right, and supporting them that way, and saying, okay, we need to set it up so you can have time to plan and make a plan and something that'll work for everyone.
Ultimately, I feel like he was just giving them communication tools.
Yeah.
He would talk things out so they knew exactly what one another was feeling, instead of assuming things. And that's kind of where a lot of the problem was. They were making these assumptions. So I was feeling like this family didn't care about him. and vice versa. Like they felt like the son didn't care about them, didn't want to be part of the family anymore.
Mm-hmm. If no one, does anyone have anything else they'd like to add?
Well, I was just thinking about how at the beginning he kind of got to get to know everyone. He found out that Jimmy likes to go skateboarding and like just things like that. And so, and then throughout the whole discussion, he was saying, "Oh, well, you can take time together and do things that he likes together." Like he like telling the dad, like, "Hey, you guys can go to the skate park and talk those kinds of things out and have that one-on-one time and things like that." Where, and so I think that was really neat that he was able to get to know them enough where he was able to say, "Hey, hey, they like this, or this is how they feel loved, or like things like that. So this is like, here's a tool. You already have this tool. Please use it," kind of thing. Like he just kind of showed them what resources they already had, and then just kind of facilitated how they would use it. You know?
Yeah, I like that too. I almost feel like he did that too to show that he valued them as a person. I value you enough to learn a little bit about you to help relate to you, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I think that also helped facilitate their being willing to open up to him,
Mm-hmm.
because, like he kept saying, "I'm a total stranger." You know, at the end, he was saying, how did this go for you? What did you think and stuff?" And he was a total stranger, and yet they were able to talk, you know, about pretty openly about their feelings and thoughts and the behaviors that they were worried about and stuff.
I'll show you some.
So.
He was able to break down a wall, I think, their guard, to get past the surface.
Yeah.
See?
It shows he cares a lot about them too. Like he's not just gonna go in and talk to them without knowing something about them. He profiles them prior to the session, and then he listens to them carefully, helps fill in the blanks to what they all need to say or how they're all feeling, and then he asks them about their experiences with them. They usually have a pretty good impression afterward, and so it was just a very thoughtful process.
Sorry, I couldn't really hear you very well.
My internet may not be the best either.
Let's see. Looks like Paige has her speaker off. But one other thing the next question is, did anything happen that oh goodness, now I'm getting distracted. Travis, I can't think, but just a second. That's a lot.
I'm sorry. Before we move on,
Yeah.
I just want to add one more thing. Just that he focused on more than just the relationship between Jimmy and each of the family members. Like he didn't make it just about Jimmy. He talked about how the husband and wife were together, and the brother and sister, and then the daughter and the mother. Like he kind of like he made it about the whole family, not because he didn't make it all about Jimmy being the problem child and stuff. And I thought that was really important to be able to not target him, but be able to look at the whole family, the whole picture, and show them how each of them could take steps to improve the situation and improve their relationships with one another and not just their relationships with Jimmy.
I agree.
Yeah, and going along with that, how oh goodness, I think I just lost my thought. Sorry. But yeah, I agree with you also. I really like that. Oh man, what was that? I had a really good thought. I don't remember what it was. Oh, I remember. Okay, so I really appreciated how he didn't make such a big deal about was he doing drugs? Was he drinking alcohol? That wasn't really the underlying issue. But even though that was, important. Hi, Brittany.
Okay.
Even though that was important to the family, that wasn't the underlying issue that he was addressing. He was addressing the feelings. Why the arguing? Why were they arguing? Why were they behaving the way that they were? And then eventually he did ask, are you doing these things that your family is worried about? And probably if he had been attacking him from the get-go, are you smoking? Are you drinking? Then maybe he wouldn't have been able to give a response. He may not have felt like validated enough to answer. But since the therapist didn't attack him that way, he felt open enough to tell what was going on. Brittany, we're just sharing some of our observations from the simulation and how they relate to the reading that we did today from the Strengthening Family Resilience Chapter 6. So let's see. Talking about some points that we identified and the trends that we found in the observations. Is there anything you'd like to share?
Well, I kind of thought it was cool. I talked about having different attitudes, and I thought it was cool. You can hear me.
Sorry, real quick.
Really cool. Each time they moved, they had a different attitude. It was kind of.
Hey, Kate, is there a possible way you could go to a different room? Sorry, it's really hard to hear.
Can you say that again, Haley? Or
is there any possible
Haley,
way you could go to a different room? It's kind of hard to hear.
It's hard to hear. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I mean, I totally understand.
I have really loud children. Let me.
No, totally understandable.
Let me see if I can go outside.
Oh, that's what kids do, though. So.
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
And it's raining outside, so I'm not going there.
If you can't go outside, okay, we can work around it.
No, I'm going to go to a quieter room.
Thank you.
Does it work down there? Yeah. Sorry, I apologize.
No problem.
Yeah, I mean, like, worst case scenario, you just turn off your microphone whenever you're not talking and stuff. That way, the feedback doesn't come back through.
Okay, I should be going to a quiet room here.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
No, I'm glad you told me that. I get so used to the loud noises.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
I don't know. What have you guys kind of already shared, I guess? That's kind of, I don't want to just repeat, what you guys have already shared.
We've talked about, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, there were just certain things in his video I thought were really interesting. When you read it, when you read the reading, it really went really well with what he did. Like, he repeated himself a lot. When I first watched it, I was a little kind of annoyed, actually. I was like, why is he just repeating everything they're saying so many times? And when he did that, every time, though, if you watch their faces, they got annoyed, but they actually were like, what's the point of this? And, like, they had to really think harder each time he asked. I just thought that was really interesting. Because, like, I can't remember what the boy's name was, but his attitude at the end was completely different. And it was really cool. I thought it was.
No, I would agree with that they were very closed off in the beginning. And then they started to kind of open up and see that he was very helpful in what he was saying, and he knew what he was doing as a therapist.
It reminded me, I watched this show called Rookie Blue. I don't know if you guys watched that, but it's a TV show, and I'm not recommending you watch it. I watched it. And she was training this new rookie cop or whatever, and he wanted to just go through and gun and, like, get to the point. He wanted to like arrest people. You know, that was his goal. And the person who trained her, she said, "Do you remember?" He said, "Do you remember when we'd get in the car and right before we go in, I'd sit there and start eating?" And he goes, "That was to give you a couple minutes to just compose yourself." And I don't know, when I watched that show and then I watched this video today, it reminded me of that, like how he, like it each gave them each time asking how he asked whoever wants to go first, that each gave them all time to prepare themselves. I just thought it was kind of cool. It just reminded me of that a little bit.
Cool.
Okay. Was anyone surprised by by the observations, what you observed or found from the film? Any surprises?
I wasn't, but that's because I grew up with a dad who's a therapist. So we've had a lot of family discussions where you sit down, you're going to talk things out, whether you like it or not. And so, I don't know, there's a lot of times where, like, growing up with 4 sisters, we had to sit down. You're like, well, I don't really like them right now. And he's like, okay, well, why don't you like them right now? So, to me, that was more what I've grown up with.
I'm actually quite familiar with it too. I took a class from Brother Williams, who was the therapist who did the session, and so I had a class where that's all we did for the whole class period was learning how to get to the bottom of problems, and most of it was a lot of reflective listening and helping them to think about it, and that's why all the repetition, yeah, it may have been annoying, but it gave them multiple chances to think about what they were doing. And so I understood the methods that were implemented in the video just because I had a whole semester on it. And it was a good class.
I guess I was a little surprised how angry the daughter was. That was like that surprised me. How angry she was throughout the whole. I felt like she was angry kind of almost the whole time. I was just really surprised by that. I don't know, not anything he did. I wasn't surprised by it.
I was a little surprised at how I didn't feel like they focused on her very much.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was just his method or what. I don't know the reason, but that's just one thing I noticed. I didn't feel like they were as concerned, and maybe he'll get to that like with the next session. But they focused on the parents and the son.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that too, and I thought maybe at the end of it he kind of said, like, when he was explaining or asking what were your thoughts during this whole process, and he said, I'm this scary weird guy, and she was like, yeah. And so I thought maybe he kind of recognized that and was like, maybe I'm going to hold off from her. I don't know. That's kind of what I thought. Maybe that's why, because I noticed that too, that it seemed like she was kind of just a side note to the family situation, family dynamics. But
yeah, he might have been gauging that, I would think.
Yeah, he did try to talk to her a lot, but it was just there wasn't a lot he was gonna talk because they kept on repeating how much the son was the issue, So it was, I don't know.
Maybe there wasn't a lot to focus on.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought it was, but I really loved how when he moved the parents together, how the husband immediately grabbed his wife's hand, it was just kind of interesting to watch that. I just thought that was very cool to see how quickly they're at it. Everything just changed, and I loved that he made the move. I just thought I love doing that in the society, make everybody move too, and I just think it's so fun. See how people, their whole attitudes change just by putting them in a different spot.
One other thing that surprised me was, and I shouldn't be surprised, I've never had a class with this teacher. What was his name? Brother Williams?
Mm-hmm.
Or Wilson Williams. And I haven't had a lot of interaction with therapists. I have been to a counselor 2 sessions, and I loved it. I was like, I want to do this all the time. But I was just so surprised at how well he directed the conversation. And I was just thinking, wow, this takes practice and a lot. And I also noticed he was working up a sweat. He kept on rolling up his sleeves, and it was hard work to do this and just physically and mentally draining, I think. That surprised me. I didn't realize that it would be such hard work, I guess.
I remember him saying that too, that there were days where it was hard because he would go home and like he wanted to tell his wife things and unload, but he wasn't. He was sworn to confidentiality and he couldn't. But it is hard, I would think.
I know my dad had to finally gave up the profession. He said it was just too hard. You just took too much of people's burdens on and drained you.
I bet.
Yeah. I've not had any experience with that, but my dad, he's been in like the bishop work and all this kind of thing. But they do a lot of that type of stuff. And I always remember my mom's like, she used to love to sit us down on our couch and she would talk to us and that kind of mode where she would stand up and she would work up a sweat, just like telling us all. And we just laughed at her all the time. It was very nice, but we ended up just laughing because she just gets so worked up, and it was always about cleaning or something like that. And that's kind of what it reminded me of, just a little bit. She'd go, "Why are you doing this?" You know, just the same questions over and over, and we were like, we don't know the answer." And yeah, that just reminded me of a little bit at the beginning.
Okay, any other surprises? No?
There's just one thing I was thinking about. He kept kind of saying, "Oh, look at this dork." Like he kept belittling himself, which I thought was really weird for a therapist to do. Like, did anyone else notice that? That he kept like saying like, "Oh, I'm not very funny. Oh, I have bad jokes. Oh, I'm a dork. Oh, this. I don't know a whole lot about your family." Like, I mean, like he kind of like kept like, I don't know.
I
Himself?
think that's his personality. Just from knowing him, that's just how he is. Like a lot of people will do that, and it's not that they're fishing for compliments, but I think that's just like his personality, and it's just part of how he does it. So maybe that's not what he's supposed to do, but that's what he does. It's just him.
I was sure that it was like a personality thing and stuff. I just thought it was really interesting because just from what I've learned, like behavior and stuff, just from school and stuff, about how when we say things like that about ourselves, like they're kind of like we kind of reinforce them. They become a part of our identity. And so it's like he like reinforces, "Oh, I'm not a funny guy. Oh, I'm kind of inadequate in this area," or things like that. So I just thought it was interesting for him to kind of bring that part of himself into therapy when he's supposed to be reinforcing their strengths and things like that when he's belittling himself at the same time. Like, I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting for him to do as a therapist.
That's
I guess
true.
it just shows how imperfect we are, you know? That there's always parts of us that we have to better too. Even though we're giving someone advice, you know, we're always trying to become a better person and have more self-esteem, I think.
That's true. And like just you saying that, I think that he might be doing that just to kind of show that like because he's not perfect either. Like just because he's a therapist doesn't make him any better off than they are. And just kind of reinforcing that he's vulnerable too and stuff. So I think that might, I don't know if he does it deliberately or not, but that's just interesting to think about.
I think it does demonstrate humility, though. I think you got a point there. He does joke about it, but like if you meet him, he's just the most down-to-earth guy. Like I think that's just how he is, and it is kind of nice to know that there is somebody that can somewhat relate, because he's not up on his high pedestal, like looking down on people and saying, "I know how to fix your problems." He's like, "No, that does stink, or your situation is hard," and he can actually come down to other people's level and relate to them. Very relatable.
Really, the only difference between us and a therapist is they've learned the tools to communicate, and they're just helping us learn those tools too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely.
Yeah, I really like that. I was just going to add about I noticed that he kept saying dork and dumb questions and stuff, and to me, it was like a way to put them at ease. Like, if you don't, this is a dumb question. If you don't want to answer it, you don't have to, kind of. And maybe I'm a dork. Maybe it's, and this is just my observation, just letting them know that, yeah, like you guys were saying, I'm not perfect either, and I'm not judging you or anything, and you don't have to do this. This is, up to you. Kind of. So in a way, like you were saying, Paige, it was kind of like, well, this is weird, yeah, but at the same time, I think it may have been effective.
I think also, oh, go ahead.
No, I've been talking a lot, so.
Honestly, I think that the words that he used, like the dork and those are words that teenagers would connect with. I guess, like I kind of would be surprised if he talked that way to just a family of adults. I don't know if he would use those words. You know what I mean? Like, oh, he does. Okay, then never mind.
I think when I hear that, like, use the word dork and stuff, it's just him saying, "There's no right answer here." So it's a dumb question. And just say what you feel like. You know what I mean? Kind of putting it at ease, put the pressure off that I'm looking for an exact answer. He's just saying, whatever you got for me, give it to me, because this is probably a dumb question to even be asking.
Yeah, or like just kind of along the same lines where he feels like he doesn't want them to feel like he's patronizing them, where he's asking these, he's prying, like he's trying to dig out these answers. So I think that, like you were saying, like it's supposed to put them at ease when he says, this is a dumb question, but what about this and stuff like that. Like I think that for him to say something like that, I mean, I think that there could be a better way to ask that question and stuff besides saying that the question is dumb. But I don't know. I think that he did a great job and stuff. But I was thinking about how like, because it was able to put them at ease, it doesn't make them feel like he's this guy who has all the answers and is digging for a specific answer and things like that, like you guys are saying.
Yeah, I don't think he knows the answers. That's why he kind of gauges and says stuff like that, just because it eliminates assumptions. And it's not safe in his profession to make assumptions, because people would not go back to him. They'd get mad if he was wrong. And so it kind of gives him that ability to know for sure what he is thinking, but he's not going to come right out and say, I think you should do this, and you're being a baby. And, he's not assigning people roles and telling them what they need to be or anything like that. He's not telling them how to accept the problem or anything. He's just learning the perceptions of every person in there and making everyone feel important.
Yeah, I thank you. I really like that. How are we doing on time?
Well, we started at 8:47 and it is 9:16.
We have a half hour, 15 more minutes of talking, and then 15 minutes of summary.
Perfect. Were there any more surprises that anyone had?
There was. I was also thinking about the way that the family was responding, because one of the most common answers I got was, yeah, I guess. Whenever he would say, is this how you felt and stuff like that, and then they'd be like, I guess, which to me, when I say I guess, I'm a little apprehensive. I'm kind of I don't really know if I actually feel that way, or that's kind of my nice way of saying, no, I don't actually feel that way at all. So for me, hearing them all say, I guess, was is he actually getting to the bottom of it? Or, I don't know. For me, that was a little weird. Did anyone else feel that way?
I think it's important to remember this was one 45-minute session, And when you look at a problem, we don't really, it takes a long time. So maybe that's just their apprehensiveness on it, just not feeling quite comfortable and wanting to really indulge in their feelings. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be really interesting to watch the beginning session and their very last session.
Yeah, you'd have a lot more background that way, too. You would have, all the backstories leading up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that you pointed out because I saw that too. But if you still like, even from the beginning and the very end of the video, they like their sentences were not anymore. They actually said full thing like, and he challenged him as he went through. You know, at the very beginning he would just repeat what he said, and they would just answer with yes or no type and then at the end he asked them to like give like a full sentence. It wasn't just a yes or no kind of answer anymore towards the very end. That was one thing I did notice. I don't know.
No, I think that's good. I did notice too a huge difference between the beginning and the end. And like you're saying, I think it would be really cool to see a few sessions from now, or even the next week, to see what happened during those during the date. Were they able to talk about some of the issues, you know? And during the family council, basically, is what he asked him to do. What happened? Because to me, I'm imagining, okay, I have a feeling I know how this council is going to go. It's going to end up everyone shouting at each other, and the sun's gonna go off. You know, that's just how I'm imagining it. That's probably pretty pessimistic, but you know, it'd be interesting to see. And then, okay, then what did we learn from that? You know, at the next session, and to see the progress would be fun to see. And definitely, like the last session would be really awesome to see what the changes are, if there's big changes.
I actually thought when you brought it, I thought that him asking him to ask his for the father to ask his wife, sorry, I can't talk, his wife out on a date. I thought that surprised me, and I really liked. I thought it was really cute to watch the kids' reactions. I don't know, I just because they were really like they don't. I don't know. They almost obviously most. I don't know, my parents don't ask each other out that way in front of us ever. I mean, they go on dates, you know, but obviously they don't do that in front of us. I just thought that was really cute, the way he did that. I don't know. You could tell it was surprising to the kids, and it was nice, I thought, that he focused on the parents for a little bit because it took the pressure off of the son. Because for a while there was very, you could see how, I mean, because I do that with my brother, he's the only boy in our family. And he gets dragged down quite a bit just because there's 5 of us girls, and so we all are little mothers sometimes. And I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool the way that he did that.
It makes me kind of think, just when you said that, like how important parents are, because if they're not together, nothing else is going to be together.
Oh,
and so
exactly.
maybe by him asking them to go on a date, he's saying you need to strengthen your marriage with one another, and your kids will see that, and then eventually that will help strengthen, you know, everyone else's relationship when you guys are together and see eye to eye.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's important.
I think if the couple is more in a united stance too, they're more likely to make decisions that are mostly agreeable to everybody. Like the wife doesn't get undermined, or the husband doesn't get undermined either, when they can work together and come to decisions in a concise manner.
Because if you remember in the very beginning, the husband and the father weren't agreeing on this. He didn't think it was that big of a deal, and she was really distraught about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how the therapist at the end asked her, how does it make you feel to know that when your husband just kind of draws back, that he really loves you and cares about you, and he just can't handle the situation because he cares about you so much and it's just too much. And she said, that really makes me feel a lot better, because I thought he was just like leaving me alone to deal with this on my own. And so like you're saying, they were able to be more united. And I think that sitting them together also helps the physical, I don't know what I was trying to say, but just being united, being close to each other, and like what the date is doing too. And I can totally attest to our family. We have 3 kids, and it runs so much more smoothly when my husband and I are on the same page, and when we feel more connected, and when things get crazy and we forget to go on dates or even just spend time talking to each other at the end of the day, things go a lot worse. It's a lot harder, and the kids can tell, and it's like they pick up on it so much faster than we do, and they use it to their advantage, and it's never a good thing. So I agree, being connected and if the parents' relationships are good, then everything else will go a lot smoother.
Yeah. Kind of I was discussing this with my parents this week, and I said my dad used to travel a ton, and I was saying how I don't know, in my own personal experience, I don't know that that's the best for a family now that I'm starting to have kids and stuff. Because I remember when my dad was out of town, we'd get away with way more than when my mom was just my mom. Because she was tired, or, she'd be like, no, I don't want you to do that. I'd be like, oh, please. When dad was in town, you just didn't ask, didn't ask to stay past curfew. And so kids see that. They see when you're not united, and they know, the little areas where they can get away with things and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's true. I remember doing that as a kid. I knew who was the vulnerable parent and who was going to say yes and who would say no. I think every kid does that at some point. And then when they caught on, they were like, no, you have to go ask your dad, see what he says first, because I'm not going to give you an answer. Or, they would go back and forth to each other, and they had, they figured out ways to make a united decision so that they weren't undermining each other.
Okay, are you all ready to go on to the last question, or does anyone have anything else to share? Okay. Let's see. How might a professional or paraprofessional prepare to capitalize on such opportunities to introduce or reinforce the types of resiliency factors from Walsh's article? That's a lot of That's a big question. It took me a couple times to understand it. Maybe you guys got it the first time, but how can a therapist or someone, a paraprofessional, use what was discussed in Walsh's article to help families basically be resilient?
One thing that I was thinking about, kind of relating to, like I said before, about how Brother Williams, he was able to identify the strengths and the resources that the family had, and then bring them to their attention and show them how to use them. And so, like, I think that just showing, like, therapists in general, they can identify those resources and show the families, hey, you have this. Using this will help you be more resilient, kind of thing. That's one thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, so that's like what he did when he asked them what like activities they like to do, right? That's kind of what you just
Okay, you guys, I'm really sorry, but I'm out of town and my daughter is like having a meltdown, so I have to go put her to bed.
Okay.
So I'm sorry I have to quit short. But is there anything else I need to do on my end?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think you're good. Just one of us needs to send all this in. So you're good.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Email me if there's anything else I need to do.
All right, sounds
Okay.
good.
Thank you, Haley.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay. Let's see. I wish I'd remembered this. They talked about in the reading how how therapists would use like a narrative and helping them like work things out and stuff. I feel like Brother Williams did that, where he was kind of, oh, so when you do this, you feel this, or like he would kind of like line up everything into like one solid story kind of thing, where he would just narrate what everyone was feeling and as he was restating it and stuff. And so I think that therapists would do very well when they do that, where they have that narrative in there.
Yeah, I think that really helps to take like the accusation part out of an argument, is to stop, like it really stops the because you could tell when they first, like I felt like when they first started, like all their little comments could have easily got into an argument, like they were kind of a little harsh at the very beginning, and when he would do his little, when he would intervene, it kind of stopped. That feeling like just went away, it dissipated really fast by doing that. I thought that was really interesting.
I like that too, and I like how he remained so positive with it. Like I'm just looking at some of my notes from the chapter we read, and he did all these things that they mentioned, help them identify and affirm and build on family strengths. He talked about all their strengths. What the strengths they had was that they cared for each other so much, and he credited all their positive intentions, saying, "Oh, that's because you really worry. You're really worrying. That means you really care." And giving him credit for that and praising any efforts. He was never negative. He was never critical, cynical about anything, and that just helped them. I think if he would have been critical or cynical, they wouldn't have been able to reach any kind of growth or any kind of outcome from it. They would have just been stopped more. And another thing that he did was help them gain coherence and make their crisis comprehensible, manageable, and meaningful, and just making it clear, clearing up ambiguity. I hate that. That's a hard word for me to say, but made everything clear, and just kind of like what you're saying, Brittany. And it's like he did a textbook therapy session. It seemed like. So I think this question is kind of getting at how we can prepare, or how can a professional prepare to capitalize on and reinforce the resiliency factor. So how could we, if you were a professional, what would you do to get good at this, I guess?
I practice with my own family. That's like the biggest thing. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
I tried. They don't like to be guinea pigs. I'm going into marriage and family therapy, so I do actually use it, and they know it too. And they're like, "Don't use that mind shrinking stuff with me. Just don't. I'm not like that." And I don't know. So if they know you're doing it, they might not like it. But
that's a great point. I don't think I would like it either.
My husband feels like he gets watched too. Like, he's like, "Is that what they teach you in that family therapy stuff? Just stop doing that. I'm not under a microscope."
That was like the other day. Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say on my computer, I had pulled up something for this lesson, and you know how it says family stress and coping, and my dad walked in, and he was in his office, and he goes, "Was that up for me?" And I was like, "No." Like, it was so weird, just doing the homework in his office, and I just thought it was so weird that he was offended by it. It was just funny. Yeah.
Oh, that's
but I use it in church, too, like on my 12, because I teach 12 and 13-year-olds. And I don't do I don't do anything weird to them. But I'll use the little stuff I learned, and it's helped me a lot. Like, I've been a way better teacher because of the stuff I've had to do in these classes. Yeah, just to help because I don't know if you're taking some other classes you're taking, but they teach you like how to even set up your classroom, your whatever you're going to be talking about. They just have to set it up like where he had. His chair was sitting in front of it. He wasn't behind his desk, he was in front of it. Like, that kind of stuff totally makes a huge difference to how your lesson goes. Like, we had a family evening lesson on Monday, and we played a Jeopardy game, and we played it with my mom's side of the family, and they're very competitive. And the game didn't really go over the way my mom wanted it to. She felt like she lost control of it, and she asked me afterwards, she's like, "Man, that was horrible." And I was like, if she had stood up, she sat down, if she had stood up, it would have made a huge difference. Because she would have been in command. She would have been taller than everybody. It makes a huge difference. And those little things are things that I've learned a lot. They're helpful.
No, definitely. I remember setting up the environment in the class too, because we had to simulate sessions as well, and like, it makes a difference because if you place members of the family that aren't supposed to sit together, but you always put like the husband and wife next to each other, and then the siblings that are fighting next to each other, because then it kind of suggests less that they're not fighting and that they can make up. But when they're far from each other, it almost puts like that barrier of distrust, and so then they have a harder time making it work out. And so having someone make them sit next to each other and like set them as the middleman, have a comfortable atmosphere, and just kind of work through it slowly. Nobody feels threatened and everybody sort of comes out with it. And it's not in the negative way that we might say it if we were doing it ourselves. You have somebody that's like, oh, they actually really are acting this way because they care for you, they're concerned about you, or, you know, and it kind of sugarcoats the whole thing. And so I like that it adds that positive aura about the situation.
Did you guys ever have your parents when you were, I don't know, when you guys were out in trouble? Like when I got in trouble with my sister, my mom would make us sit and we'd have to face each other and we'd have to touch the other person's knees. That's how she used to make us sit for like a couple minutes so that we would calm down with the other person. I don't know, I just remember that when you said sitting, making them sit by each other, it just reminded me of that. And it was really irritating.
Not in a negative way. My mom made us, like, when I would get in a fight with my brother, she would make us kiss when we were out of timeout, or we would never get out of timeout, and so we would always like resentfully kiss each other and then like go wash our mouths off because we didn't understand the process of like what she was trying to accomplish. And so yeah, now it's just funny, but yeah, we didn't like that as little kids.
Well, my mom, she would have us hug each other and sing the Barney "I Love You" song. It's like, oh my gosh, Mom.
That's the last thing you want to do when you're mad at someone. You're like, no, they're mean, they're the enemy.
Pretty much. But it eased the tension all right and kind of directed our resentment towards her instead of each other. So.
Yeah, it did your feelings, didn't it?
But it worked, I guess.
Yeah, it is. That's what my mom would tell us purposely. She wanted us to be mad at her and not at each other. And at the end, it was always really interesting when she did that. I always think my mom should have gone into this because she's so good at it. She just didn't know. She doesn't know all the, like the research behind it. But anyways, I just always am amazed.
You guys seen those pictures of the kids that wear the shirt that's like, this is our getting along shirt, and it's like a huge
I love that.
They have to wear at the same time. Just thought of that.
So good.
Well, we kind of torture our kids when they fight. We make them sit on the repentance bench, and it actually works pretty well for my boys. I have 2 boys and a girl, and when they fight, they have to sit on the repentance bench, and it's so funny because one of them, they know that they both have to say sorry. They have to say sorry for what they did and ask the other person to forgive them, and they both have to forgive each other. And sometimes they're on that repentance bench for 15 minutes, and they will not, like the other person will be like, I'm so sorry, and the other person will just be ignoring them because they know that if they forgive them, then they'll be able to, the other one will be able to get off, and they want to punish the other person. So it's really funny. I mean, it's really sad, but at the end, they have to give each other a hug and get off. But by the end, they're like best friends again. And so I kind of struggle with it because sometimes I'm thinking they're just trying to hurt the other person, but in the end, they always come out good. So I don't know. I'm still trying to decide on that one. But my little girl, she's only 3. And she doesn't care at all. She holds on to a grudge for like that long, and so it's not real effective for her yet. But anyway, we'll
little
see.
kids are really forgiving too. I mean, how old are your kids? They're probably not super, like they're not old or anything like older kids.
No, they're 7, 5, and 3. But the 7 and 5-year-old boys, they like to torture the other one.
That sounds like what boys do, though. I grew up with
Yeah.
all brothers and then one little sister finally, and so
Oh.
I always got picked on. And then my little sister picked on me when she got old enough because she was bigger than me. True story.
That's too bad.
I'm over it.
Oh, family.
Well, that's all our questions, unless anyone has anything they'd like to add.
Um,
I don't know. Should we just like fill the time? I'm like looking at it and we still have a little bit on there.
yeah, we still have. I mean, we still need to say the summary and
Yeah, let's
stuff.
hear the summary.
Yeah, let's do that. That'll pass the time.
Yeah. We're supposed to spend 15 minutes on it, but I don't think it'll take that long. So I don't know. I don't know. This is just kind of what I have. We kind of talked about when we were first talking uh, about the points that we identified and stuff. Like we kind of picked up on like how he would use reflective listening and spend a lot of time clarifying. And he helped that their see that their situation was normal and things like that. And he kept repeating what they were saying, and he helped them work together to come to a solution and help them collaborate together. Um, and then he helped them see how their like what their feelings were, and um, they were all able to see that while their intentions were good, they didn't go about it the best way. And Stephanie's able to simplify everything to the point where you're saying that everyone was doing what they were because they cared. Um, he didn't solve the problem for them, but he acknowledged that they knew their family best. And he complimented and praised them for what they were doing right. He gave them communication tools. Um, he learned about them so that they could see the opportunities and resources, so that they can make things better. They already had the tools. He just helped them see them and know how to use them. He was thoughtful throughout the whole thing, and he paid attention to all of the relationships for the most part. Um, we also talked about how he didn't attack Jimmy, even though he was the one that they were all there for and stuff. He was the main purpose. He was able to focus on each of the relationships and things like that. He gave them time to prepare themselves instead of badgering them. How like when he would ask, um, like this is a dumb question, but how do you think about this, or who would like to go next, or something like that. He didn't pressure anyone. He just kind of asked and let them come as they wanted to. Um, it, and then we were talking about what was surprising and what wasn't. We weren't too surprised about him as a therapist in terms of the methods that he used. He didn't focus on the daughter so much, and he probably gauged that he wasn't doing that as well. He moved everyone around, which was interesting to see, and how he put the wife and husband together and the daughter and the son and sat everyone, and he moved the son over on the couch with the parents. Um, Compared to our experiences with therapists, we found that it was we were thinking about how taxing therapy is, how for them it's having those burdens of others placed on them, that it it could be hard on them sometimes. Um, let's see. He was careful to not make assumptions and was sure to ask questions in a non-patronizing way so that they would answer in a way that was truthful, but they didn't feel like they were pressured or judged for it. Um, at the beginning, their answers were a bit apprehensive, and they were short yes or no questions, yes or no answers. But over time, we saw that they opened up a bit more, and they were giving longer answers. Um, we thought about how interesting it would be to see the differences between the first and last sessions, and so to see how different they would speak to one another and with the therapist and stuff like that. His focusing on the parents was also interesting because it showed how important he knew that the parents being unified would help everything else kind of fall into place. We kind of talked about, and then when we're moving on to what other therapists and professionals could use in terms of tools, we kind of talked about how they could use a narrative to help relate themselves or relay the information that they were receiving into a story and things like that. They identified resources that the family had and helped them realize them and use them. They can help families realize, validate, and create positive emotions and actions. They can make it clear, eliminating ambiguity. Let's see. We also talked about how therapists should be careful to not be obvious in the techniques that they're using. That way they don't feel like a guinea pig or like they're under a microscope. They're setting up, also setting up the environment in a session, even though we didn't, I don't remember us reading about it, but we were talking about how the setup of the environment and how the way that everyone was sitting next to each other and things like that, that was important as well, according to like relationship dyads and things like that. And it creates the atmosphere. That is what I got. Is there anything that I missed?
I think you did a great job, actually.
Yeah.
I think you got it all. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, good. I was like, I feel like I missed a lot.
Really? I felt like we just relived the whole session.
Flashback.
It was.
Okay, awesome. Good. Yeah, I'll refine that a little bit more and stuff. That was just kind of like little like tidbits and stuff, but I'll put that in a better Word document and submit that. All right. All right,
Do
cool.
we all have to submit like our own assignment, like a copy of it, or do we just have one person do it and then it like disappears on our iLearn?
It won't disappear in your due in 2 weeks, but it says on here, please make sure only one submission is made per group. So since I'll be the one who has the YouTube video for this hangout, I'll go ahead and I'll submit the video and the summary and stuff. You guys just worry about doing the self-evaluation and the preparedness and contributions. If you guys would feel more comfortable, I can type up the summary and post it on the discussion board that we were using to coordinate everything and stuff, and then you guys can go through and make additions or anything, or make sure it's all good to go. And then after you guys look through it, just kind of say yes or no, and then I'll submit it before Saturday.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right.
Good work, ladies.
All right, great.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm gonna turn off the broadcast now.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Yeah.